Now you know me, I don't really re-upload or re-edit videos that often, especially because it's gonna kill the video. However, after the sheer amount of people talking about how low I've put Mauga and Orisa, I've decided to make some amendments. To preface the video though, I want to say that most coaches from a few days ago have been saying that this new patch will not do much for the meta. These guys are widely respected both by the pro scene and by the public. Even people like Coffee were thinking about doubling down and putting Ryan in S tier. There were also people saying, don't make this rush like your Season 9 list 4 weeks ago. And did you not listen to what I said at the very beginning of that list?
Of course, this is the biggest patch Overwatch 2 has gone since its release, so this is gonna have to be first impressions.
First impressions. I've never said that in any of my other lists, because there was never a patch that big before. Not to mention, have you been paying to anyone else in the scene? Dante literally put Doom in D tier, and I was the only content creator who showed any respect to Doomfist, and tons of other creators were making lists before me. I don't know why I have to take the double standard here. The meta has also settled down since those 4 weeks. We genuinely know what heroes are going to be played more than others. Maybe not perfectly know because of the new patch, but we do have a lot more data now that we didn't have back then. It's why when I put Mauga in C tier, I'm going off the data that I know of. Nobody on Twitter is complaining about Mauga in scrims. Nobody in my team is complaining about Mauga in ranked or in scrims. And in fairness, I will admit I should have paid closer attention to the recent M80 and Toronto scrim, which is why I'm putting Mauga significantly higher, but there's only so much data I have. As for the actual Mauga placement, I'm tentatively putting him in high B. Now I say tentative because just like the other heroes in B tier, he could very well be higher. Just like why I placed Doom in my Season 9 list 4 weeks ago, they could very well be higher. Mauga has very good matchups individually into Doom and Winston, but I still think he struggles when it comes to verticality and just controlling the map overall. With that being said, I wouldn't be shocked if teams started running Mauga comps more, because they're usually more easy to run, and considering how easy it is to play Mauga, I'm sure he'll be good in rank too. The same logic I just used will go for Orisa, which is why I'm placing her in beta as well, and likewise, she could also go a lot higher. As for other placements, I'm putting Ball and Bap a bit lower, but that's really it. Listen, I'm already behind by multiple days on videos that should have been out time ago, as well as macro videos like communication and awareness, as well as getting on with my map guides, as well as having to make a response to Samito's counter-swapping video, as well as having to do uni work, as well as having to coach a team.
Warwick Angels not making it? Yeah, Warwick Angels not making it.
As well as trying to have some semblance of a social life. Give me some leeway. All tier lists by any creator should be taken with a pinch of salt, and if there's a few placements that don't quite match up 2 weeks down the line, that's why. Anyways, here's the original video with the respective Mauga and Orisa bits cut out. Give me some leeway in the comments. Starting off in D tier, Weave is still staying the same from where I placed him 4 weeks ago. He got a change where he can now heal up to 80 healing, which would be a buff if the total time wasn't increased too. It's safe to say that I don't think this is going to change much. After Weaver, I have Bastion. He really suffers from tanking the DPS passive himself, and I don't think the 50 HP increase was really enough to make up for how squishy this guy is when he's not in turret form. There's just more efficient options out there at the moment. Ending off the D tier, I have Junkrat. They gave him a buff in the hotfix, but it didn't really do much, considering the 2-shot combo is what gave Junkrat 90% of his value. Until he gets that value back, I don't see him getting much playtime beyond the odd Lijiang Control Center map. Before I continue, just a quick plug on my coaching. Hit up the link below and I promise you won't regret it. After Orisa, I have Hanzo. He's in a similar position to Junkrat is all I can really say. Couple that with now how on this patch, Lucio Kiri dive seems to be meta, and Hanzo struggles quite a bit against that, I don't see him getting much play. I mean, when I was asking for Hanzo gameplay from players in the top 50 of EU, I kinda got laughed at, so take that as you will. After Hanzo, I have Iliari. Her primary fire got buffed, but they're pretty minor changes. She's still probably gonna lose duels, her breakpoints still suck, and ultimately, angled pressure this patch, especially when it's coming from range, is kinda weak overall. After Iliari, I have Zarya. Yes, I know that Gunbus team, Bubo Spraycheck, ran Zarya Cass recently as a counter comp to the Doom stuff, but the issue is that the enemy team can just run Ram and run you over. Zarya's a great situational counterpick against certain comps, but lacks the versatility to make her a stable option. I want to make a video debunking Samito's video on counter swapping, and Zarya's outdated hero design does take part in that, so I'll save the details for now. After Zarya is Pharah. Pharah's great. until you run her into Echo. Echo still shits on Pharah in matchups, and Echo is top 3 best DPS right now, so you can see why I've put her in the situational category. Otherwise, she'd be higher. Ending off the C tier is Hog. The 3 meter buff to his hook puts him roughly at the same place as he was at the end of Season 8 in terms of his one-shot potential. In other words, he needs his Pigpen to reliably one-shot, but he can deal a decent chunk of damage without it. Couple that with the DPS passive nerf, and I think he'll be solid in ranked, but still trash in team play. Starting off the B tier, I have Reaper. He got some buffs to his Blossom, which isn't really going to do much, but I'm quite keen on the idea of frontlining DPS heroes to be more viable than the angled DPS heroes we've seen in the past, and I definitely think he can be viable in the Lucio Kiri comp. Next up is Mercy. Breakpoints are still the name of the game here, and I still think she's pretty good in ranked environments, arguably even A tier. What brings her down is that just in team play, she's getting almost no action. After Mercy, I have Ashe. Same kind of story. In ranked, especially with a pocket, she can do bits, but in team play, she just gets ran over. Again, angled ranged pressure is usually weaker this patch. After Ashe, I have Zen. He pretty much got killed after the hotfix, but he's fine in most ranked environments. As long as you have enough distance to buy your team time to control the map, you can actually deal with the Lucio Kiri comps quite well. After Zen, I have Brig. She got a pretty sizable repair pack buff, which you'll definitely feel the effects from, and a cheaper rally cost. This allows her to keep up the healing demand more, and who knows, maybe Lucio Brig will make a comeback, and Brig gets bumped up to A tier. Not gonna happen because of nade by the way, but still. After Brig, I have Queen. I actually think Queen is a really good shout, no pun intended, for being an alternative pick against the Doom Lucio Kiri comp. One thing I didn't mention beforehand was how much easier it is to consistently hit knives due to the size increase from last patch. I will say, I think she still hurts a lot from the DPS passive, and she can get forced out from different angles, but if you're careful, I certainly think she's more than viable. After Queen is Sigma. His main downside is that the 2 best tanks right now, being Doom Winston, Sigma is not only pretty bad into, but he's also pretty bad into the new meta comp that's being played, namely the Lucio Kiri Tracer Echo stuff. There's hardly anything for him to mark, and you need to be really mechanically talented at Sigma to pull him off into dive comps. After Queen is Genji. I think some coaches have placed Genji a tad higher than I've placed him, and I can see why. But my biggest qualm is why run Genji when there's Echo, who isn't relying on breakpoints, who has more consistent range damage, who benefits more from the projectile size buff, and can deal with heroes like Pharah. After Genji, I have Widow. Her projectile size got reduced in the hotfix, but her ability to be the only one-shot hero in the game is still pretty powerful. In ranked, she'd be higher than B tier, but in team play, because Doom, Lucio, Kiri, Tracer, Echo, Sombra, and Genji, basically dive heroes, are the top heroes of the moment, she ends up suffering quite a bit in team play. After Widow, I have D.Va. She just doesn't dive this patch if I'm being real, but with that being said, I have yet to see a counter dive D.Va, Mercy, Kiri, Echo, Tracer type team take the stage yet in team play. Still good to play in rank though. After D.Va, I have Ryan. Ryan got a 25 HP buff and a 20 damage point buff to his Fire Strike, and while people think he's bad or incredibly weak right now, the reason why he's not getting much action is just because other options are more versatile or better at living through the DPS passive than he is. It's kind of a similar story to heroes before Reinhardt. There's just better options out there. With that being said, I think these changes should help Reinhardt feel more durable in ranked. After Ryan, I have Soldier. Good in ranked, not good in team play. He'll get more action when or if Illari re-enters the meta, and if the buffs are enough to encourage teams to run Soldier Illari as their primary form of map control, but for now, Lucio Tracer still looks like the go-to due to their ability to live through the DPS passive and dip at a moment's notice. After Soldier, I have Symmetra. She got a ton of buffs this patch, now dealing almost 200 DPS with a fully charged beam, having a tankier teleporter and tankier turrets. I thought Sim was already viable last patch, just in Brawl Mirrors, but now, especially with how oppressive those turrets might be, Sim might be a seriously worrying duelist in ranked comps with more ranged heroes. After Sim, I have Bull. Honestly, thinking about it now, I should put him a little bit lower, but before the hotfix, when healing was a scarcity, Bull did really good. He's not meta by any means, but he's still by far in the best that he's ever been. After Bull, I have Mei, who got an ammo increase and faster healing in Cryo. These changes aren't that meaningful, but with Brawl heroes generally being buffed across the board, and the leaning into frontline DPS heroes as we're starting to see, I think I'm tentatively putting Mei in high B tier for now. After Mei is Cass. Again, I'm tentative to put him in A tier because I think he's a sleeper pick into the Tracer Echo stuff. I just need to see him being played more. After Cass, I have Ana. A nice buff to nade, increasing the explosion damage and healing, but this is only maybe gonna affect how she feels in ranked. This doesn't really change the viability of Lucio Kiri in higher level play. You just Suzu off the nade anyways. Ending off the B tier, I have Sombra. She got a flurry of buffs, but the EMP one is probably the most notable. Honestly, I'm being edged to put Sombra in A tier, but I just believe that Echo Tracer is still optimal. I wouldn't be surprised if I put her in A tier in a few weeks though. Starting off the A tier, I have Baptiste. Yes, while he didn't get much pro play last patch and isn't really great in team play right now, because of how flexible Baptiste can be in ranked environments, I just have to place Bap in low A tier. After Baptiste, I have Torb. His turret got buffed from 11 to 13 damage per bullet, meaning the DPS has been increased from 44 to 52. However, before this buff, Torb was actually already a good counter pick. Gumba's team ran it on occasion, and that's mainly because Torb can just live through dives, similar to Cass, but he can also mark off-angled pressure, namely Tracer, with his turret which just got buffed. After Bap, I have Moira. I think compared to Baptiste, her ability to just live and survive the DPS heroes, including the DPS passive, became pretty valuable. Heroes that don't just duel, like Iliari, but also live through the dives is a pretty valuable skill. Moira is only really outshined by Kiriko, who can also do that while providing more utility and range than Moira. After Moira, I have Ramattra. Whenever teams play Brawl nowadays, the go-to is Ram, and for good reason. His ability to just live through the DPS passive thanks to his block, and his ability to poke out the Ryan comp significantly more just makes him the better option. His Vortex got a nice cooldown and damage buff too. After Ram, I have Sojourn. She's still good, and that's because of her mobility. She's actually playable into the meta comps, because she has that Get Agile free card in her slide, but she can land finishing blows when she swings in tandem with her dive crew. After Sojourn is Kiriko. A lot of people thought she was going to be bottom half of the support roster because of the lack of two-shot for some reason. In reality, it's Kiriko's survivability and utility that has pushed her to being the most meta flex support right now, and it's likely going to stay that way. After Kiri, I have Winston. Probably the second best tank at the moment, I think, is the general consensus. He's still got a decent amount of play from OWCS, at least from teams that would lose the Doom mirror, and I think the Doom Winston matchup is actually fairly nuanced. There's serious chance for Winston to be an S tier and Doom to be a bit lower, considering that if the Zara cast stuff actually works, and teams start playing that a lot more, then the Winston comp starts looking a lot more favourable. And lastly, I have Echo. She really benefited from the projectile size changes, meaning she has both the flexibility to be a reliable spam character in dive comps, but she's also capable of getting in close to land those stickies and beams. She also dominates most DPS heroes at the moment, you know, your Pharas, your Torbs, but who knows, maybe Casimir makes a comeback and shuts down Echo Tracer. Now entering the S tier where I ideally have one hero per role, I have Tracer. The nerf to her fall off did nothing, and ultimately it's really the extra HP that allows Tracer to tank through key breakpoints like the Mei 1-shot and Iliari 2-shots. She's just a GOAT at the moment in both team play and in ranked, so no real big surprise here. After Tracer, I have Doom. Why his Meteor Strike got buffed, we will truly never know. He was already going to be S tier with no changes because he's the most play tank in Pro League right now, but this buff to the weakest part of his kit just confirms it for me. Still really good in ranked, by the way. Last but not least, I have Lucio. Until the projectile of his Cheerios get nerfed, I don't see him dropping out of S tier anytime soon. The guy's kit is just way too flexible, and even if we do see a comeback of Ryan, Ram, Bap kind of stuff, which isn't really going to happen, but even if that did, he'd still be S tier. His kit is just too flexible, and his ability to dish out damage and live through it himself, thanks to his mobility, makes him the support of Season 9. Anyways, that's it for the list. I always try to keep the distribution as equal as possible, and this should be a lot more accurate than the tier list I made 4 weeks ago, since everyone was just throwing shit at the wall, but since stuff has settled down now, I still primarily think Doom, Lucio, Kiri comps, maybe chuck in Winston there too, are gonna be the mainstay for now. Until next time.